UFC Vegas 89 just recently wrapped up, and I'm going to recap the entire card. Start with the first fight of the night and then work my way up to the main event. So make sure you guys smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. And let's get into the first fight of the night. The heavyweights went after it early. It was Mick Parkin versus Mohammed Usman. In the first round, Mohammed Usman landed some massive punches, and I was honestly feeling really good about Usman having a shot to KO him. Problem is, Mick Parkin did weather a storm. Now, he didn't do significant damage, but he outpointed Usman a bit. It was pretty much a boxing fight. Usman at the end actually looked really surprised that it went against him. But personally, I thought it was first round Usman, second round Mick Parkin, third round Mick Parkin. He landed clean kicks to the legs, and that was a major difference. I would say Usman definitely had better punching power. As far as boxing skill, I mean, similarities between the two. Maybe Parkin's a little better from distance. But ultimately, the X factor was Mick Parkin's leg kicks. He chopped Usman up, and I think that limited Usman's ability to close the gap. And Mick Parkin gets a decision win to start the night. He's an undefeated English heavyweight that I just am not that excited about. I don't see him beating the upper echelon of guys. Granted, we're going to find out at some point because he's unbeaten in the UFC right now. And he just beat Mohammed Usman. He's in an interesting spot here. I mean, what was he, 3-0 in the UFC before this or 4-0? Let's see. He's currently 3-0 in the UFC. He was 2-0 before this. My mistake. Do I think Mick Parkin challenges for a belt? I'm not thinking that. But he's only 28. The dude looks like an ogre. I mean, looking at him, you'd think he's 33. He's got time to marinate, but he doesn't have a lot of power. And I do think that chin could get cracked by somebody at a higher level. I'm curious what the UFC does next. Expect him to fight in that card July in England. That's what he called for after it. Next fight on the card, it was André Lima versus Igor Severino. What a weird fight. Igor Severino decides to bite André Lima as he's shooting for a takedown with the body lock control from the backside. Yes, a full bite. We saw the bite mark afterwards. The dumbest decision Igor Severino has ever made in his fucking life. He got immediately released from the UFC and destroyed his MMA career. He was 8-0, hot prospect from Contender Series. Now he's going to be known as the fucking biter from the damn UFC Vegas card that got released from the UFC and is probably never coming back. Look at Paul Daly with the sucker punch after the bell. He never got called back to the UFC. Granted, Strikeforce, Bellator gave him chances. Severino, I did think he lost the first round. I mean, it's weird that he was shooting for a takedown, and I guess in some senses could be considered in an advantageous position and decide to bite. But he was also grabbing the shorts. Now, I know André Lima also grabbed the cage a couple of times. Ultimately, you can grab the cage a couple of times, maybe get a point deducted, but you can't bite your opponent, okay? That was an instant disqualification, I think justified, and then it was an instant pink slip. Igor Severino, see you later. The UFC throws him out. He's 20 years old, so you could say it's the immaturity, right? And that undeveloped brain making bad decisions. Maybe eventually the UFC gives him another chance if he goes on a nice win streak. Maybe when he's like 25, bro. He's got to develop that frontal lobe because right now his decision-making is just retarded. Absolutely stupid. Next fight on the card, Daria Zheleznyakova versus Montserrat Rendon. Sucked. I mean, Montserrat was somehow busting up Zheleznyakova. When Zheleznyakova was on her back, it was trouble. Rendon did land a takedown and get on top. But a lot of quality defense from Zheleznyakova, but with like subpar stand-up. At the end of the fight, she finishes it with like 4 or 5 spinning back fists. The hype on Zheleznyakova after this one, I think, took a substantial halt. Montserrat Rendon's a physical specimen. She's really strong, but her striking is lackluster, man. So slow on the feet, and the fact that she busted Zheleznyakova up the way that she did, it really makes me pump the brakes on what I think of the striking skill coming from the, I was going to say the French fighter, but from the Russian. The Russian fighting out of France. Zheleznyakova got it done. She deserved the win, I think, at the end of it. I scored it for her by a little bit, and she beats Montserrat Rendon. Not overly impressive. Not overly impressive. Not impressive, actually, to be honest. Not impressive. A win nonetheless, though. Next fight, talk about impressive. Jarno Errens is a big underdog, beat the shit out of Stephen Nguyen. He touched him up in the striking. Nguyen is one of the toughest guys on the roster. I mean, the dude's an absolute zombie because he got hit with so many clean shots. He was rocked a couple times, but never out. Still was swinging at the end. Still coming forward at the end of the final bell. And, like, I have to give a lot of respect to Stephen Nguyen's heart. But Jarno Errens, he looks like he's turned a little bit of a corner, right? He came in 0-2 in the UFC, beat Stephen Nguyen, who's coming off the Contender Series. And Errens looked fast, man. The stand-up looked really solid for Jarno Errens. I was impressed by what I saw from him. He beat Stephen Nguyen up badly here. Destroyed him. Now, granted, Nguyen did damage too, and Jarno Errens' face was busted up as well, but he was never rocked. Stephen Nguyen was rocked on numerous occasions. He was dropped early in the fight. Good win for Jarno. He's a good striker, man. He looked more like a Dutch kickboxer this time out than some of the previous fights. Listen, you know what? One thing we got to say, it's a positive. He's rocked every one of his UFC opponents. Finally gets a win. Next fight on the card, Miles Johns versus Cody Gibson. Miles Johns won a gutsy decision on short notice. The end of the first round, I thought Miles Johns was completely gassed. But even though physically he looked very tired, he ended up actually fighting well, putting good pressure on Gibson, landing key takedowns. Johns hits really hard. And it's funny, the commentary was like saying he's like a mini Yoel Romero. I can kind of see the comparisons. He was throwing some bombs. Gibson could not deal with the heavy shots and couldn't deal with the takedown pressure. Miles Johns gets it done, guts out a hard win that he took on just days' notice. And I think it turned out to be an absolute genius decision for him. 14-2, 29 years old. Like, Miles Johns is definitely a solid fighter in the UFC bantamweight division. Outside of the rankings, he gives a lot of people difficulty. I like Miles Johns' game a lot. Took out Cody Gibson here. I'm happy with him. I'm happy with the performance, especially short notice, man. He still went a hard 3. He looked absolutely gassed at the end, but, like, didn't stop. And that shows heart. So, good win for Miles Johns over Cody Gibson. The Ultimate Fighter finalist, Cody Gibson, takes a fat L. Next fight on the card, Julian Erosa versus Ricardo Ramos. What the fuck? Ricardo Ramos has a negative fight IQ, guys. He's destroying Erosa on the feet, dropped him early, nearly finished him, and then he's spamming takedowns with his head on the outside and gets locked in a guillotine. Against a guy with skinny, long arms like Erosa, you know he has a good guillotine. We saw Ramos guillotined against Charles Jourdain, just leaving his neck out there. Like, I question the IQ completely. It makes zero sense. Ramos looks really good. He's got a lot of potential, but the fight IQ is negative. So that stifles all the potential. Holy hell, that was stupid. Like, we know Erosa's got nasty submissions. Why are you shooting and leaving your neck out like that? If I'm fighting Erosa, I'm shooting single legs only, trips on the inside. Or I'm punching him in the face because he leaves his hands really low, and Ramos was having success doing it. So stupid. So stupid. So stupid. This negative fight IQ, and that cost him the fight. Listen, not trying to take anything away from Julian Erosa. He got a nice sub. Ramos, I thought he was almost out of the guillotine when he tapped, too. Erosa is going to beat you if you give him your neck. Erosa's got submission wins. He beat Charles Jourdain, Sean Woodson, Ramos. Good strikers. He can be losing fights, and he can turn it up. Good win for Juicy J, Julian Erosa, man. He pulled it off, and he snapped his 2-fight losing streak. For Ramos, what the hell? I think he's so much better than he shows. Featured bout of the night. Featured prelim, rather. Trey Ogden versus Kurt Holobaugh. Oh, my gosh. Kurt Holobaugh grinded out... Excuse me. Trey Ogden grinded out Kurt Holobaugh dominantly. You guys got excited for a second if you haven't seen the fight. Kurt Holobaugh got destroyed on the ground, completely controlled the whole time. In the striking, he was looking good, but in the grappling, it was all Trey Ogden, and it wasn't close. Ogden looked so strong from top. Secured that half-guard position. Kurt Holobaugh could do nothing from the bottom. It was a shame. It was a fat L for Kurt Holobaugh, man. He got dominated in the wrestling years ago against Pat Healy in his UFC debut. And now his, second UFC fight. Well, I guess not second ever, but the fight following Dana White's Contender Series, he gets dominated on the ground by Trey Ogden. Ogden looks solid, man. That type of strength's impressive. I got to give credit where it's due. Holobaugh turned out to be one of the worst lock underdogs of all time. But it is what it is. It is what it is. I'll take it on the chin, man. So you can roast me now if you'd like. I already got roasted on that damn live, but I'll take him. I'll take him. Good win for Trey Ogden nonetheless, man. He shows he's legit. For fucking the Ultimate Fighter, no more veterans on the Ultimate Fighter because it leads them to mid-careers. Ogden was 1-2 and 1 no contest in the UFC, and Holobaugh just lost to him dominantly. Next fight brings us to our main card opener. Fernando Padilla put it on Luis Pajuelo. Slick striking from the outside, and then he ends up subbing him up. I was impressed as hell that he locked up the Darce choke like that. I believe it was a Darce. We'll double check. Yeah, Darce choke standing. Pajuelo had him rocked. Padilla had Pajuelo rocked too. The way Pajuelo fights is so square and brawler. Like, you get a guy with decent slickness, decent shots from the outside. He starts eating Pajuelo up, man. Padilla looked really, really good in this fight. I was happy with his performance. He's a good fighter. He's a good fighter. He's a good prospect. 27, still young, marinating in his game. You give him a guy that's going to sit in there and just look to bang, he's going to pick him apart because Padilla has a sophisticated stand-up style, and he's not just a brawler. He's pretty slick and technical. Locked up the Darce choke standing. I was impressed by that. It was a 6 sub and huge W for Padilla to start the main card off. Big W. Also, guys, if you haven't yet, make sure you smash the likes. And if you're new, subscribe. The next one was Youssef Zalal versus Billy Q. Youssef Zalal destroyed Billy Q. Holy shit. This is one of those comeback performances that are epic. Zalal was 0-3-1 in his last 4 UFC fights. They let him go. He went on a 3-fight win streak. Took this fight against Billy Q on short notice, and he absolutely dominated the entire fight. Destroyed Billy Q striking, destroyed Billy Q on the ground. He won by submission against Billy Q, who's a jiu-jitsu black belt, who owns a Gracie jiu-jitsu school, who's known for his ground skills. At 27, Zalal has evolved substantially since his early UFC run. He did fight Ilia Topuria some time ago and went distance there. Zalal's stand-up is very legit. And his grappling skills have come a long way. Because if you strangle Billy Q with ease like that, you're definitely a fairly legit guy. Like, Billy Q, what was he ranked heading into this fight? He was ranked number 19 on Tapology, best UFC featherweights, or best featherweights, period, around the world. That's huge for Youssef Zalal. He said that in the post-fight interview, and I wanted to double-check. Zalal's making a major move up the ranks now. His second run in the UFC, I'm very interested. His striking reminds me a little bit of like an Edson Barboza hybrid, and his grappling looks really good too. Like, at 27 and a half, bro, Youssef Zalal is going to be in the top 15. He's going to get into the top 15. I'm very excited to see more from Youssef Zalal. This win was major for his UFC career. And I mean, when you dig into the losses, now they've aged pretty well, and this win over Billy Q proved he's legit. Ilia Topuria, Sungwoo Choi, who's mid, Sean Woodson, who's very solid, Topuria, obviously the champ, and then Damon Blackshear draw down a weight class, and Blackshear's really good as well. Yeah, Youssef Zalal looked epic. Destroyed Billy Q, man. Absolutely destroyed him. Next fight was Peyton Talbott versus Cameron Saaiman. Peyton Talbott destroyed Saaiman for pretty much the whole fight. The striking was on point. He had him rocked numerous times in the first round, caught him with a nasty knee, good punches to the head, and then to start the second round, drops him with the left hook and ground and pounds him. I'll be honest, I think the referee stopped that shit too late. I think it could have been stopped 10 strikes before because Saaiman was pretty much out. It's interesting. In the first round, Saaiman kicked him in the nuts, and Saaiman has kicked every one of his UFC opponents in the balls. I don't know, man. Shady tactic. And even Talbot told him, fuck you, after he did it. And I think it's because he's seen the tape. Saaiman tends to throw those slightly low cup shots in the perfect spot. And, he does it one time. They give him a warning, and that could change fights. Peyton Talbot, though, on the other side, wasn't thrown off by it, wasn't hurt substantially by it, and he ends up knocking out Saaiman brutally and proving the hype is real because Saaiman went 3 rounds with Christian Rodriguez, who's pretty decent, right? Guy that just beat Dolgarian by controversial decision, but still a decent fighter nonetheless. And Peyton Talbot absolutely murdered Cameron Saaiman. So Talbot's a guy to watch, man. I know some people don't love his personality. I saw it in the chat. But as far as his fighting goes, some of the sickest in the game. Very excited for more with Peyton Talbot, bro. He's absolutely fucking awesome. Next fight on the card, we had Edmund Shahbazyan and AJ Dobson. What a comeback from Edmund Shahbazyan. he was getting absolutely rocked early in the fight. And it looked like he was going to get knocked out in the first 2 minutes. Dobson was looking fast and powerful as hell. But Shahbazyan chose to keep on fighting, not lose faith in himself. His confidence didn't wither. He landed a takedown with trip, actually, which calmed things down. They got back to striking. They sat in the pocket a bit, and Dobson got dropped with a huge left and destroyed with massive ground and pound. Edmund Shahbazyan still's got some power, man. He's a finisher for sure. Now, he was badly tested in this fight as it wasn't looking good, but he weathered storm. He came back, and he finished A.J. Dobson in a round in impressive fashion. And this was massive for Edmund Shahbazyan's career. He really needed this win. 1-4 in his last 5. Now 2-4 in the last 5, right? 2-1 in his last 3. Some things are going in a positive direction for Edmund Shahbazyan at 26 years old. I was very impressed by how he touched up A.J. Dobson. It was not him becoming a world champ, though, type impressive, but the fact that he dug deep and was in a pretty shitty circumstance and able to fight his way out of it and get a knockout win in the first round. That, for me, was a massive learning curve for Shahbazyan. So, good shit by him. And A.J. Dobson was looking better than ever, but he got flatlined. That's the fucking game. That's the fight game. Good win for Edmund Shahbazyan. I want more unranked guys for him. He's only 26, too, and he's taking a lot of damage already, though. Next fight on the card was our co-main event of the evening, and this one just made me feel sad. Tafa landed good strikes and had Carl Williams rocked on numerous occasions, but the dude, Carl Williams, is relentless with takedowns, and Justin Tafa is a novice in takedown defense and clinch grappling. His, explosive hips can keep some takedowns at bay, but when you get him against the cage, he's not putting pressure on the head. I'm saying during the live stream, bro, I'm not training MMA. I'm watching every fight every week. I know for a fact you got to put pressure on that head. Instead, Tafa's shooting for arms and shit, and he's looking to spin out. Crazy to me. Absolutely bad technique. Shooting for legs doesn't make sense. Big mistakes by Tafa in the grappling. Substantial mistakes that cost him the fight. A fight that he was doing damage on the feet, but then was taken down, controlled, and ground and pounded for significant portions. And I will say, Carl Williams was striking with him a little bit as well, but Tafa had Williams wobbled on a couple occasions, and in that third round, it looked like Tafa was going to get the fight, but then Williams gets him down. Carl Williams was holding on for dear life, absolutely rocked. Williams is closing in on the top 15. I believe he is now 4-0 in the UFC, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. What's his UFC right? 3-0. I keep thinking it's 4-0. He's 3-0 in the UFC. He's running on up. I'm not thinking a rank contender next, but his wrestling gives a lot of guys problems, man. You land those consistent takedowns, somebody's going to stop him, though. I'm seeing vulnerabilities in the striking department, and I do think he'll get chinned at some point. But I will say, regardless of the lackluster style, because Carl Williams' style is not entertaining, really, compared to a Justin Tafa knockout artist, he does got a good personality. He called out Stipe to a charity barbecue after. He seems like a good family man. So I give credit where it's due as far as the person, Carl Williams, gem of a guy. As far as the fighter, not my favorite to watch, but effective nonetheless with his athletic wrestling attack. He can weather some storms. He eats a decent punch. And at heavyweight, a lot of suspect grapplers. So Carl Williams might be fighting somebody ranked next. Main event of the evening. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash the likes, and if you're new, subscribe. Thug Rose versus Amanda Ribas. You know, it was very close, in my opinion. I know it seemed like the commentary had it like a complete washout, but I thought Ribas was absolutely in the fight. I would not have been shocked if they gave her a close decision. I personally thought round 5 was definitely Ribas's, without argue, and round 3 was definitely Ribas. The rounds that maybe are more so in question would be specifically round 4. But I also thought that Rose got round 1 and 2. Round 4 is an interesting one because I thought Ribas had decent striking moments, but she was on her back to finish the round, and Rose was peppering shots from top. So I can see from top position, throwing strikes, getting you the round win. And Rose 48-47 is definitely fair, but I was surprised by a 49-46 call because I thought definitely Ribas did enough to get the third round. And I don't know, they just acted like Rose completely washed out Ribas. At least the commentary did. I totally disagree. I do think the win, well-deserved, but no way it's a washout. 49-46, I didn't see it like that. I thought it was 48-47. And if it would have went towards Ribas, it would not have shocked me. I wouldn't be standing here saying it was the biggest robbery ever. I can't say it's a robbery with Rose Namajunas winning. Obviously, Rose deserved the win. If Ribas pulled it off, I don't think I'd say it was robbery. maybe you could argue slight controversy, but it was close. It was a competitive fight. Ribas outstruck her as well. There was more control time from Rose Namajunas, but it was a good back and forth. Some, head and arm tosses by Ribas, some good spinning body kicks by her, decent strikes on the feet. Her gas tank didn't wilt at all. She definitely won the 5th round. Rose Namajunas looks solid. Not as scary as she's looked in her prime at 115, but she wants to stick around here at 125 and has said she's interested in the Erin Blanchfield-Furo winner. I kind of like the idea of a Macy Barber fight. That's a real top contender fight for sure. I don't know exactly what the UFC is going to do. Interesting, right? Because the women's flyweight champ, Grasso is fighting Shevchenko again, and they're coaching the Ultimate Fighter first. Next weekend, the next card I'll be breaking down, so tune into tomorrow's full card breakdown, or I guess today's, because it's 1:46 a.m. Sundays. Atlantic City, Manon Fiorot takes on Erin Blanchfield. Rose Namajunas could potentially fight the winner of that if timelines don't necessarily work out for a title shot for the winner, even though I think that the winner of Fiorot and Blanchfield is a well-deserved #1 contender. Nonetheless, Rose Namajunas did get the win, but I'm not overconfident in her abilities at the higher level here at 25, the highest level. I think she'd struggle with somebody like a Macy Barber. I think she'd definitely struggle again with Fiorot, struggle especially with Erin Blanchfield. I think she'd struggle with Valentina and Grasso too. So very interested to see how it plays out for Rose Namajunas, but I don't think this was a complete washout. I thought that this was a really difficult fight against Amanda Ribas that she got in a very competitive fashion. That was my take on the fight. I thought it was close. I thought it was a good back and forth. Ribas looked very solid and better than I expected her to look. I thought Rose would have a more clear, dominant win. I think Ribas gave a scrappy effort. Tough Amanda Ribas for sure. But nonetheless, Rose Namajunas gets the W in the main event and gets back to her winning ways. Finally breaks that losing streak. She had 2 losses in a row. Nice to see her get a win at sophomore women's flyweight appearance. Good shit for Rose Namajunas, man. She dug deep, and mentally, she was saying, I'm the best. I knew she was there. That was the mentally strong Rose Namajunas. Good performance. Good grappling, too, from her. Good striking as well. Solid shots. I thought she could have hit Ribas even harder and landed some bigger shots, but she definitely landed some nice strikes. Ribas has got a good chin. That was Rose Namajunas' win in the main event. That was UFC Vegas 89. As far as the picks, 7 wins, 6 losses. But I did sweep the most confident pick section with Rose Namajunas, Edmund Shahbazyan, Miles Johns, and André Lima. So I was happy about that. Unfortunately, lock of the week, I went underdog lock mode, and I ended up taking a fat L with Kurt Holobaugh, which turned out to be a terrible pick. No more 35-year-old or over locks, especially underdogs, specifically under the heavyweight or light heavyweight division. Now, as far as the other fights, I picked Tafa to knock out Williams. He was close, but no cigar, lost. I picked Peyton Talbott to beat Saaiman, pulled it off there. Billy Q, Zalal, competitive. I thought that Q could pull it off. I picked him to win it, took a foul out there. Zalal showed me. And I said before, unless Zalal shows me, I'm not going to believe it that he can stop the grappling. And he won with grappling, which was badass. Picked Padilla over Pajuelo, very happy about that. Lost with Ramos over Erosa. But I did say, if Erosa wins, it's sub. If it's Ramos, knockout. And the sub was big plus money and worth stabbing for some. But still, nonetheless, Ramos' fight IQ is negative. That's why it wasn't a high-confidence pick. The Jarno Errens fight, lost with Stephen Nguyen against Jarno Errens. Won with Zheleznyakova over Montserrat Rendon. And then lost with underdog Mo Usman versus Mick Parkin to start the night. Overall, not terrible. We're getting back on track. Getting ready for UFC Atlantic City. I'm feeling better about it. 7-6 on the card. Still in the green zone, which I'm happy about. Just a little disappointed with the underdog lock. But it's all good because I bring the heat for this next UFC card, UFC Atlantic City. I hope you guys enjoyed the full card recap and the week's worth of content. Much love to the people. Make sure you guys smash the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and turn the post notifications on too. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Let me know what you thought of the fights in the comments down below. And if you got nothing to say, but just enjoy the content as always, drop a W in the chat to boost the algorithm for your boy. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you all on the next one. Peace.